Thank you all very much. So delighted to have the opportunity to join you here this afternoon to share some of the learnings that we've gleaned over the last 3 years implementing 5G and trying to deliver the benefits. We're at... can you see the slides okay? Yes, good. We're at a really exciting time, I believe, for 5G. So I was saying to Stuart, actually, just before this presentation, it's approximately 3 years since the first commercial 5G network, I think it was EE, launched in the UK. And although there's still much more to go in terms of rolling out the public networks, in terms of future releases, in terms of devices, I believe we're now at a point where we're starting to see some of those inflection points with exciting potential. So what I want to cover today is really 3 key things. So firstly, I want to briefly introduce the context around the work we were doing. Why were we doing it and why was it important to do it now? Secondly, and most importantly, I want to share some of the results where we see the big commercial and social opportunities around 5G in the real world, not just the theory and the hype, but where it can really happen. And thirdly, I'd love to share with you where we're taking it next. And if you're interested in following up on these conversations, I would love to have a chat with you because my business is extending beyond the West Midlands and we're actively engaged in lots of other opportunities elsewhere at the moment. So let me just say a couple of things about the West Midlands because I was determined to approach this presentation not as a technology-led presentation, but as a sort of customer or demand-led presentation. So the West Midlands, as you may be aware, encompasses the UK's second biggest city, Birmingham, also Wolverhampton, Coventry, and it is the historic industrial heartland of the UK. And it's been going through a bit of a renaissance, actually, over the last decade. So we've seen Coventry as the fastest growing city, I think actually in Europe as well as in the UK. Birmingham is about to host the Commonwealth Games in a few weeks' time and has gone through a massive transformation if you've been to the centre of Birmingham recently. And also lots of growth and exciting things happen. So it's a region where prior to the pandemic, it grew faster than any other region in the UK outside of London. And it has a real focus on how to build on its strengths and drive growth. So it's a place where people are going places and making change, and it happens to have the most startups outside of London as well. So it has a thriving tech sector. Companies like Gymshark and others are unicorns there, and massive opportunities for growth. So 5G was mission critical for the region because, as you're all aware, really the focus of 5G in terms of the 3 key technology features it's all about being so-called low latency, enhanced mobile broadband, and the massive Internet of Things, that they're fundamentally about transforming businesses and public services. And in reinventing what the West Midlands stands for, how it delivers change, those things seem to be mission critical to what we needed to do. And clearly there's huge potential in terms of job creation and other opportunities off the back of it. However, there are 2 brutal market realities about 5G that still play out today. The first is there's no point talking about massive 5G adoption until we get the public networks and the private networks deployed at scale. And the truth of the matter is it's incredibly expensive and slow to roll out mobile telephony networks as well as broadband networks. It can take up to 3 years to upgrade a 4G mobile site on top of a building to a 5G mobile site. The deployment model for things like small cells, these smaller radio transmitters at street level, is completely unclear in lots of circumstances, and it's going to cost mobile operators, it's going to cost the private sector about £2 to £3 billion to upgrade all the 4G masts to 5G in the West Midlands alone. So there's no point having these networks just in the centre of London or the centre of Birmingham. We've got to get them out there at scale much faster than we've done in the past. And the second kind of big challenge as I see it is that, having a 5G network by itself doesn't change anything. What changes things is when we bring together organisations who've got strategic problems and opportunities with technology companies, including 5G and cloud, to solve those problems. So we need to create innovation on top of the network. Just getting 5G out there doesn't change anything by itself. So we won the opportunity off the back of a government competition 3.5 years ago to build the UK's largest urban 5G testbed. And essentially what I've been focused on, what's been my passion over the last 3.5 years, is focusing on 2 strategic objectives that play to those market challenges. The first is around how do we get the 5G networks out there much faster, much quicker and better, working in partnership with the mobile operators, working in partnership with landlords, working in partnership with government. How can we really go at this in a way that's fundamentally faster and better for everyone involved? And we have this ambition of building the UK's most connected region and exporting the lessons elsewhere. But then the second thing we've also been doing is we've been innovating at scale on top of 5G, public and private networks. So we've been working with colleagues in the NHS and social care, in the transport sector and also in manufacturing to test, prove and start to scale opportunities using 5G to make a transformational difference in those sectors. And finally, working in partnership with Deloitte, Digital Catapult, Telefonica, we also launched the UK's first 5G accelerators, so helping startups, not necessarily telecom startups, but startups using technology to benefit from 5G to accelerate their products and services. So that's the first part of my presentation, why we've kind of been in existence. I want to start by just firstly sharing a video that summarizes what we've been doing to accelerate the rollout of 5G private networks.
West Midlands 5G set out to make public assets more widely available for mobile deployment. The starting point was creating an easy-to-use interactive map showing the location of their public sector assets. As a result, all 7 local authorities in the region have published their assets on this map for the mobile sector to see. West Midlands 5G knew that lengthy negotiations over every mast site slowed down 5G rollout. So, to streamline this process, a simple cost-based approach to valuation was developed and standardised agreements were utilised, removing the need for bespoke lease negotiations for each site. Now, the standard agreements are being rolled out with industry across the region. This has accelerated the deployment of 5G by as much as 6 to 12 months when compared to other areas. As a result of this work, West Midlands Combined Authority currently has the best 5G coverage in the UK when compared to other combined authority areas, according to a recent independent 5G audit report.
Great. So what you've heard in that video is how we've essentially made the process for rolling out 5G, getting access to rooftops and sites radically simpler, cheaper and easier for both landlords and also for mobile operators first and foremost. So as a result of making the assets, making the buildings where the networks need to be deployed easy to access on a digital map, making the processes and the agreements and the valuation models standardized, we've achieved a transformational change. And you know, it's one of these funny things when you talk to people who obviously, you know, may not understand about mobile deployment, you sort of think, well, why don't these things happen already? But there have been a number of quite big changes to the business model and the legislation around rolling out mobile phone technology over the last year. So the graph in the video was actually slightly out of date. It was about 18 months old. We're now up to well over 22% of the geographic landmass of the West Midlands having 5G coverage, well over half of the population, and we've obviously got to keep going to address the other half. So lots of progress accelerating network rollout. We've also been doing a lot of work on small cell deployment, deploying the radio transmitters at street level where we need those in the urban city centres. So the next video I want to play is an introduction to some of the innovation work we've been doing in the manufacturing, health and transport sectors.
5G trial is basically looking at how we can reduce the amount of paperwork and effort to run the business as we grow. What we're going to do is take 25% of our machines and digitise them through 5G so that the machine will talk to our ERP system, and we'll also be able to use some digital quality by taking high resolution images of products and sharing that with our suppliers. In essence, the Glass Factory concept is the ability for our customer to not only see where their parts are in the system and what's the expected delivery date against their plan, but also to see what our future capacity is and be able to offer that as a service by selling that capacity to them straight away.
So if I start from the clinician end, so the key benefit is the efficiency savings. So I mentioned that as a clinician, in order for me to see a patient on a home visit or a house call or care home visit, can take over an hour for that visit. Whereby if they came to the GP practice, that consultation might take 10 to 15 minutes. So by allowing them to use this technology, they can save a huge amount of time, travel time, as well as that sort of consultation time itself. So that's really important. What that means is that the clinician can now either use that time they've saved for other things, it could be administrative, but also they can provide more access to patients who do need that face-to-face visit. So that's really important.
Connectivity is changing life as we know it. 5G is supporting the development of intelligent transport systems that connect our cities, businesses and people. Trams collect a variety of valuable information, including CCTV footage and tram performance and maintenance data. The ability to transmit high levels of data almost instantaneously unlocks incredible opportunities to strengthen passenger safety and to improve the maintenance of key public transport routes. Operators will be able to provide passengers with the right information and give them confidence in using public transport post-COVID. In the future, entire networks of trams could be equipped with 5G-enabled sensors to help engineers identify issues and perform maintenance on carriages and vital infrastructure. This will make the upkeep of the network more intuitive and cost-effective. Looking forward, passengers will also be able to enjoy real-time travel information, onboard entertainment, and a much safer and more reliable service. With 5G, we're unlocking the future of transport in the West Midlands, making our cities smarter, safer, and more accessible.
Great. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an introduction to some of the work we've been doing. I just want to pause on some of those sectors and talk a bit more, though, about the problems we've been seeking to address and the benefits we've been proving. So I want to start with health and social care. So we went through a process of identifying about 66 patient pathways, so conditions, patient experiences, where we believe 5G could make potentially a really big difference when combined with other technologies and interventions. And we went through a process with the NHS colleagues of prioritising those right down. And to date, we've been focused on 3 key areas that are not only opportunities in their own right, but I think really examples of how we want to take the technology forward in the region and beyond. So firstly, about 3 years ago, I'm just looking to see if Jeremy is in the audience. Yes, with that man over there, when he was at BT, we launched the first remote ultrasound scan using 5G technology. So with BT and Universities Hospitals Birmingham, one of the largest NHS trusts in the UK, and we demonstrated the potential for a doctor in the hospital UHB to guide a paramedic to do a diagnosis of a patient who could be many miles away in an ambulance using an ultrasound scanner. Why did it need 5G? Well, a paramedic cannot do an ultrasound scan themselves. It requires a trained doctor for a number of reasons. And we needed 5G because essentially, if you imagine an ultrasound scan, the quality of the image is absolutely critical. You need the accuracy and you need the real time, and it's not possible to do that with 4G. So we started to prove, but the point of that trial was not really so much to prove the potential to do ultrasound scans, it was to start to prove the potential for all sorts of opportunities around empowering the front line of the health and social care system to do more, guided by expert clinicians elsewhere. After that, as you saw briefly in the video, we now have about 18 care homes connected up with 5G remote monitoring. 5G remote monitoring goes a long way beyond kind of video consultations as we all experience them today with our GPs. So we literally have a briefcase that we have deployed at these care centres, and in that briefcase are a range of sensors. You can see one actually, which is the breathing one. And the idea is that anyone who is a citizen, anyone who is a carer in these homes can use these devices to do all of the checks that a doctor would do, guided by a doctor remotely, if they were actually physically there. And that can have a massive impact in terms of obviously being able to better monitor patients remotely when the doctor can't physically there, diagnose more quickly and be more productive. And then about 12 months ago, we launched our capsule endoscopy trials. So bowel cancer, sadly, is the second most prevalent form of cancer in the UK. but it's also one of the most treatable if it's caught early on. The traditional approach for diagnosing bowel cancer involves an endoscopy, which, without getting sort of too gross about it, is a camera on a piece of wire that is inserted into your body to take various photos. And that is very expensive. There are challenges with hygiene, and also it is very difficult to do that as quickly and as frequently, particularly during the pandemic, as we would like. So pill cams, which are, as their name suggests, have been clinically proven. These are little pills with cameras and batteries, and essentially what we have been trialling is the opportunity in the future for citizens to self-serve, to again be sent a briefcase. I don't know why we have a thing about briefcases, but to be sent a briefcase where essentially they can be guided remotely to swallow some fluids, swallow a pill cam, and then essentially transmit the data in real time back to be analysed and hopefully get swifter, cheaper and more accurate diagnosis of critical clinical conditions. I'll say a bit more about where we've been going with Healthcare Next, but hopefully that gives you some examples. On transport, so the first thing we have implemented is what I believe is the UK's first road sensor network using 5G. So what you can see in the picture in the top left is we have deployed HD video cameras, pollution sensors, radar on now over 300 road junctions that connect the busiest A roads in the West Midlands. And we're using 5G to backhaul that data, to get that data out of those devices and to take it back to the real-time traffic control centres in order to make smarter decisions about how to control traffic flows and do a number of other things. And because it's video rather than just counts, and having done lots of things around mobile data before, there are alternatives, 4G, there's data from Google, there's various others, but they all have a number of challenges associated with them in terms of real time and in terms of accuracy. But because this is video, you can start to identify different road users. You can take actually very environmental decisions if you want about traffic flows. For example, you can let large, groups of large lorries go through, traffic lights to avoid them stopping and driving congestion. There's a whole range of decisions that you can take off the back of that. Secondly, as again was indicated in the video, we have launched the UK's first connected tram. So these are trams, but the opportunity equally applies to trains, where we've installed a whole variety of 5G sensors on them, designed first and foremost to improve the reliability of the system. So like much of the rail network, we have challenges with our tram network, with trams going out of service due to unplanned maintenance. Having the data coming back in real time on what the wear and tear is on certain parts enables us to do use cases like predictive maintenance. There's a big focus, and certainly during the pandemic then, on passenger safety. So at the moment we have CCTV on the trams, but it's not connected in real time to anything. So if there's an incident, it's very hard to respond to that incident, but with 5G we've solved that. And we also have things like LiDAR scanners on the front of the tram, scanning the environment, detecting problems, and also a number of other enhancements to help people who have disabilities and other needs to more easily navigate the system as well. We've also run over half a dozen trials on other parts of the transport system, and this is just one example where we've been having council vehicles going around with video cameras on them, collecting anonymised data to identify car parking spaces in real time and help to try and boost the economy through that. So those are some of the things we've been doing in transport to reduce congestion and pollution, improve passenger experience, and hopefully encourage more people onto public transport. And then in manufacturing, so as you heard from Ian Bouquet-Taylor, one of the directors of one of the manufacturers we've been working on, we've been focused very much on how can we support small and medium-sized manufacturers to adopt the productivity benefits of 5G. So when you look at the manufacturing sector in the West Midlands, and I think this is true for other regions as well, yes, we have some very, very large manufacturers, but actually in their supply chains are lots of small and medium-sized manufacturers. In fact, small and medium-sized manufacturers account for 95% of the GDP in manufacturing. But it's these small and medium-sized organisations that often struggle to adopt new digital technologies because they are very focused on running their business here and now. They don't necessarily have access to funding, digital skills and other things. So a huge potential target market for 5G and associated solutions, and a critical part of the economy. So what we've been focused on is a variety of use cases, both with an aerospace manufacturer in Birmingham and also a facility called MTC, which stands for Manufacturing Technology Centre, which is an amazing facility in Coventry, if you ever visit, run by the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, which is basically a factory. It's a fully operational factory designed to educate small and medium-sized manufacturers on how to adopt new technologies. And so we've been working with those organisations to prove the opportunity of using 5G to improve productivity, and also this sort of confusing phrase, machine servitization, is basically about how they can utilize spare capacity on their machines. So these machines cost millions of pounds, and having them sat idle at different points in the day is obviously very, very inefficient. But if they can license that to other manufacturers who want to use that, there's an opportunity to make some more money out of them and hopefully adopt more of them. And finally, in terms of what we've been doing, as I mentioned, in fact, ironically, I think it was about 2 weeks after we went into lockdown at the beginning of the pandemic, we launched 3 accelerator facilities in partnership with Deloitte, Digital Catapult, Telefonica, and also, those are the organisations. One in Birmingham, one in Wolverhampton, and one in Coventry. And what we've been doing through those accelerators is we've been helping startups to engage with their prospective customers. So we've been running a series of innovation challenges around things like clean tech, around things like smart cities, around construction, also manufacturing and transport, trying to bring some of the biggest names in that game in to work with these startups. And then we've been helping them over a 3-month period to develop or tailor their products or services to take advantage of 5G. So we've had a private network live at these locations for several years now that's been offering advanced features that aren't yet available on the commercial public networks in a sandbox type format. And currently we've helped over 500 organisations either get involved in the product development side or alternatively understand the benefits of 5G for their organisation. So, conscious I've got 8 minutes left. So, lots of people we've worked with. My penultimate slide is we're now extending to focus on 3 further benefits, which is why I'm interested in connecting and engaging with you, as many of you as possible. So firstly, we are continuing to work to accelerate the deployment of connectivity in other parts of the UK, not just for 5G, but also for fibre broadband as well. So as you may be aware, something like 2/3 of the cost of deploying fibre broadband is actually in the civil works. I was talking to a university professor actually on Monday who was telling me how cheap fibre optic cable is. The cost of it is digging up the road and the pavement and putting the technology on either end, putting it crudely. So massive opportunity around further connectivity acceleration, and we're already doing work on fibre in a number of locations as well, outside of the West Midlands as well. We are running adoption programs at the moment, so we have helped over 200 small organisations understand the benefits of 5G sensors and data and how their organisation can take advantage. And we are also doing more innovation work in a variety of sectors, including health and social care. So in summary, thank you very much for bearing with me while I ran through all of the things that we've been doing. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, I think we're at a really exciting inflection point now in terms of the adoption of 5G sensors and data, and hopefully you may have learned a few new things about some of the potential through some of the things I've said, and as I say, I'd be delighted to follow up with any of you who are interested in doing so. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll just lead the Q&A. So do we have any questions from the floor for Robert before we begin? I've got a few virtually.
Throughout the course of the 2 days, we've heard of loads of exciting use cases. I know from listening to you and talking to you previously that you're involved in so many. What excites you most? I know there's obviously, the healthcare benefits, right? Massive.
Yeah.
We've heard from connected forests and stuff like that, ports, etc. But yeah, I wonder whether there's a favourite, whether there's something that gets you excited, or something that maybe we haven't seen on any of these slides yet that's coming up that has really got you excited and the team excited.
Great question. So I think the one that probably gets me most excited in the immediate term is the potential in health and social care. So we're all acutely aware, coming out of the pandemic, that we have not only the structural challenge of an aging population and the growth of chronic diseases, but unfortunately this huge unprecedented operations backlog that I think is now over 6 million people awaiting treatment and care. And there's some important stats that all the amazing people in the NHS share around occupancy of beds and queues in A&E and all this sort of stuff. And what is really clear is we've got to support them through technology, through evolving our operating models to try and take the pressure off hospitals and the front line dealing with all of these critical issues and focus more on wellness and prevention. And I think through things like, for example, the remote diagnosis centres that we're rolling out in the West Midlands and other parts of it, there's an opportunity to bring really good quality diagnosis and care much closer to the patient. Through scaling up remote monitoring, there's an opportunity to give millions of people a much better quality of life living in their homes for longer. So, for example, we won a contract with NHS Digital and the NHS organisation in the West Midlands who commission a lot of the expenditure to run a trial of remote monitoring in tower blocks. So these are people who live in social housing who have chronic conditions. They're normally being ferried in and out of hospital all the time. By having an Internet of Things solution using anonymized data in their premise that just works, it's enabling them to enjoy a higher quality of living, better care and monitoring. So I think it's a huge opportunity around that. But another one I'm really excited about, because I think we need a consumer example in the mix, is the potential around esports and gaming. So there is a cluster of gaming companies in Leamington Spa, just actually in the sort of south of the Midlands. Companies like Codemasters grew up there, and it's called Silicon Spa. All of that, as we know, that esports area in gaming is now more valuable to the global economy than the whole of the music and film industry combined. And with companies now like Apple, rumoured, definitely about to launch AR and VR goggles. With the world, with not only gaming but gamification moving in that direction, the need for high-speed, low-latent networks, I think, is hugely exciting. And given the strength of the creative sector in the UK, also needs to be one I believe we need to be going for. So two answers to your question, if that's not too cheeky.
Anyone else before I go to virtual? No? Okay. So this is quite a fun one that's come in. They ask about the sort of the consortiums, like the likes of Deloitte involved. Is it a little bit of a sort of a Dragon's Den sort of situation in terms of there's a bit of investment there in terms of like how it works? How do these consortiums work?
That's a great question. So we partnered with for our accelerators with Deloitte and other organisations because we wanted to be ruthlessly focused on what we could be great at as an organisation, and we needed some others to kind of come in and help from a capability perspective. Actually, so they provided consulting services and support, other companies provided technology services. Actually, it wasn't so much to identify and invest in those organisations. So we were working with startups, but we were very clear we would do so on a neutral basis. So we didn't take any equity, any shares in those businesses. Rather, what we were trying to do was to use this as an opportunity to understand where the opportunities are, what's working, what's not working. And actually, it's really interesting. There's quite a well-trodden path with this type of approach. Companies like Intel, AWS invest in, trying to get whole technology ecosystems taking off themselves, because sooner or later somebody's going to need to buy some silicon and some cloud services. So I think taking an investment neutral approach is really important, because the challenge is otherwise you end up participating as a VC. And, while that's great if you're a really good VC, I don't think that was really the role of our business. And it just meant that we were able to attract a broader spectrum of companies and much faster and much more effectively, without having to go through lots of really speculative questions around how much would you value a very early stage business, how much would you invest in it. So it was very much a kind of indirect benefit approach we took to it. But off the back of that, there were some amazing success stories for the startups themselves, both in terms of landing contracts and raising future funding.
Great. Win-win. Just in regards to, I've just got one more question actually, and this is regards to the PillCam. So Obviously, the stories get out about sort of 5G and is there a radiation risk? And when I asked T-Mobile about this, of course they said there's been absolutely zero findings to support the fact that it could be harmful anyway. But should this really be assessed by those with no conflicts of interest and sort of neutral?
Oh gosh, yeah, no, absolutely. And so it should be, and it is. So the the government and the international rulings on 5G and radiation are informed by, I think it's a group called ICNIRP, who are an independent group of scientists, Public Health England as well, who are completely independent to the telecoms industry, public sector body responsible for healthcare. These are the people who are informing this discussion, and it's really important that we have an informed discussion about that. There's now over 20 years of research around radiation, and I should just emphasise that 5G in the UK is using the same spectrum by and large as 4G. So this is not a sort of an unknown thing, or using secret sort of military waves and all of these other things you sometimes read. So I think it's vital that it doesn't come from industry. It's vital that it comes from independent and objective scientific analysis, and that is what happens today.
Thank you. Brilliantly explained. Thank you so much. That's all we've got time for. But ladies and gentlemen, Robert, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.